my gunner, which was Mac Harrison, he was from Biloxi, Mississippi, and that was the guy in the turret. And I don't know what happened to him either. I do know that he was married. I do know he was afraid of the water. A lot of guys in the Navy, it's hard to believe, but some of them just barely could swim. Some of them couldn't swim, maybe. And during drafting time and all that's where we really needed men, they would be practicing jumping into a pool from a high area down into the pool. And I noticed a lot of them would, the minute they hit the pool, they'd sort of struggle towards the edge of the pool and grab it, because I know they would be afraid of the water, really. So I knew that he was that way, and married 2 weeks before he left the States, which was kind of a sad thing, because I don't know whether he drowned, or I don't know whether he got, you get hit by shrapnel, or Japanese could have strafed him, or I understand there were sharks out there. I didn't see any, but I understand that there were. And so we were transferred onto a transport ship, and we were loading Marines ashore, about a half-mile offshore, really. Put us to work right away, and these guys really looked young to me. Of course, I was young looking too, but I probably had a year over them. Some of them, right out of boot camp, and half of them were being killed as they went ashore, and it was a very rough battle. Yep, the details in there, and on February the 23rd, and this was 2 days after we were picked up, we were watching the battle with binoculars right offshore, and we saw the famous flag go up. I didn't actually see it go up. We see it the minute it got up, and of course they put a smaller flag up first, and then the second one. It was a famous picture by Rosenthal, I think his name was, yeah. He was a crewman, he was an aviation radioman just like I was. And he was about one of the nicest people I think I'd ever met, and highly religious. Of course his family was too. And he had a lot of friends. He had all the air crewmen. There's a lot of stories that they wrote about him to his father, because his father was very interested in how he died naturally, and nobody could give that answer. I believe, from what records I could pull together, because we lost our logbook and everything, but it was right around 15 or 16 missions. Not that many as compared to many, air crewmen and so forth, especially the fellows in Europe.
Right.
But you got to remember that I was into it towards the end of the war, after all the islands, most of the islands have been captured. The next battle, big battle, was Okinawa, and that's when the Japanese were using most all their planes for suicide missions, called the Divine Wind. Went back to Pearl Harbor. Eventually we got there, and of course all we had was our clothes that we had on, what was left, and we got a new issue there. And then he transferred us onto a old wooden vessel called the City of Paris, with it was a British ship. Evidently it must have been a merchant marine ship, but when we pulled into Pearl Harbor, we went by all these beautiful ships thinking, well, this is how we're going to get home, and they kept steering us around them and going to another, and we could smell this bad odor coming off the harbor there, and that was that ship. And it had a Hindu crew, and nothing against Hindus, don't get me wrong, but the ship was a very nasty ship. And so we went aboard that, dreading it, and they put us down in the bottom of the ship, and we slept on the tables, and swung our hammocks up, and I remember distinctly they were feeding us. The bread they had larvas, worm larvas in it, baked right in with it and all. So we all kind of we decided I'm not going to eat that mess, So we had naturally gotten an issue, some money in Pearl Harbor. So I bought some in the canteen they had canned peaches and candy bars. And for 10 days, I lived off of that. Canned peaches and candy bars. Of course, I still like peaches. Matter of fact, I had some for breakfast.
Yeah.
And we came back by May the 31st, and my parents had not heard from me because all they knew was that Bismarck Sea was sunk, but it's reported. But we weren't allowed to, you know, say anything or get any communications out. If we did, it would have been restricted. So I sent Mom a telegram, which I have a copy of, which I didn't. Again, I say this was saved by my mother's stuff up my aunt's attic, and it's in the album there of what I said that just arrived in San Francisco. It's on March 31st. It was about 40 days after the ship was sunk before they knew whether I was alive or not, you know. Because my mom had changed a lot. She looked pretty bad when I finally did see her, finally got home. I told her everything was okay, but I could see where she had gone through an awful lot of worrying. And I can understand that, having children of my own. I was there in '46. Yeah, the war was coming down, but still there was a Cold War on. In Whidbey Island, they were going to send me to Kodiak, Alaska, and I didn't necessarily look favorable to that. And they said that all aviation radiomen, they had an excess of them because they were using more voice than they were code now in the bigger planes and so forth. And so they said if you like to get out of the Navy, you could. So that's what I did. And I took an exit. And I did pass the test too to go to officers training, but I didn't do that either. So that was my choice. I was ready to get out and go to work. To be honest with you, I wanted to go to work. Of course, a good conduct in the Pacific Theater and 2 stars for battles, and don't see my wings in here. Oh, they're on the cap that I have. This is an air medal, and that's for being in battle, you know, by air and bombing. And I got 2 of those. And that was at Luzon and Iwo Jima. And incidentally, I had a pin here that was saved, and there's the symbol of the Minuteman. I don't know, all these years. I was 16, so that thing is now, what, 60 years old, at least, 65. There's a picture of a Minuteman there, Colonial Minuteman. But I've kept up with some of the other air crewmen at reunions and things. As a matter of fact, when I told you that when I was on this life raft swam away from it and went to look for what the red light was, he yelled at me. Okay, that was February 21st, 1945, and I didn't know the reunion was meeting until '95. That's 55 years later.
Right.
And we have a monthly or bi-monthly a lot of times bulletin comes out just reporting about we call it the Busy Bee. Mm-hmm. It's just 3 or 4 pages long about different things that happen to different men and so forth. And most of it is reporting the deaths of a lot of guys because at this age they're starting to pass away. But anyhow, I'd written an article in there about what happened to me, because once they find out that you were on the ship, because they were trying to locate people back in that time, '95, which is just a few years back, and I got this connection at the state fairgrounds to a recruiting officer. He wrote me a card and told me when they were going to meet, because I had no idea that they were meeting. So he called me on the phone. He's from California. He was on the raft, and he said, "Tom," I said, "I thought you were dead after you swam away from us. I didn't know you were rescued." And I said, "Yeah." So that's how we connect. So I see him occasionally now and write emailing back and forth. And there's another friend too that I email he's quite ill right now, out in Colorado. He was an air crewman also on board ship. We had a large, very tremendous and well organized in 1995 50th anniversary reunion in that town. And the whole town shut down. We had 3 parades, 3 days in a row. We had, this celebrations all over the place, and they just did it up well for the servicemen. And we dedicated a memorial. There was 40 servicemen that were killed in an area of about 30 or 40 mile radius that were local boys. So, and that's when I really started talking about the war, because I just had put it behind me and never said anything to anybody about it. And realizing that it was very important to a lot of people, and